It's week 2, end of week 2. Excellent job,
Woo-hoo.
everybody.
So
So good.
good.
Even overachieving on one of the stories. um, that's all right. That's all good. So it's an even numbered week. So that means we're going to do demos as we always do, and then we're going to do our first retro. So um, retros are just a chance for us to kind of reflect on the previous 2 weeks and think about, well, show appreciation to each other, but also think about what went well, so things we want to keep doing, and then what we could improve. So we'll get to that in a minute, and then we'll do the typical kind of look ahead to the next week and kind of figure out a plan. But first, we'll do demos. So who wants to kind of show their work? So again, the format of the demos is you tell us what problem you were solving, you show us, ideally in production, if your stuff's merged, kind of show us, your solution actually working, point at the code, so that you can kind of show everybody where to find your work, and then just tell us if there was anything you learned through the course of it. So I feel like I've stalled long enough. Anybody ready to kind of show what they have?
I can show, because I think
Cool.
that the other team, they have their work kind of like overlapped ours. So I think it makes sense. All right, 1 second. I'm trying to pull up the ticket. But what we wanted to do, sorry. We wanted to add a new item to the shopping list, so that since it's already connected to the Firestore, we just needed to get it working on a specific shopping list. So let me share my screen. All right. So this is it in production. Hopefully it works. Let me refresh the page. Oh, sorry, just kidding. This is it on my local host. Just kidding. Oh, I don't know where it went. Oh, it was this one. All right. It's still under add items. The structure was changed, but if I add Kiwi and I say I need it kind of soon, and the last day I bought it was on the 2nd. I hit add. There's no confirmation that it was added, but if I come to the, there it is, database, it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
So just looking at the code, what we did was created a form, just a regular form, and then we set it so that on submit, it connects to the Firestore, and this kind of is where we manage our state, because we used hooks for this one. And that's just the regular form capturing the value of the targets. And that's it. It's loaded up into item or add item, which is then loaded up into app.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Excellent.
So yeah, that's cool. So the entering the date, so that's interesting. I had never thought of to do that. So you're adding the item and you're able to maybe like post date, like maybe you bought it 3 days ago, or something like that, right? That's cool.
What
So
were your
that just
thoughts
gives
behind?
you
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
the date then just gives you more flexibility. Like if you forget, if you want to
Yeah, do it after.
like it's like entering your fitness from something 3 days ago. If you have a fitness tracking app, is it like that then?
I guess that's just how we interpreted the date part, is just having a date field, but you can backdate it and it'll still work. So
cool.
For when we're moving forward, it might be interesting to see how we count, like a week or 2 weeks. Do we count it from today or do we count it from this date?
Yeah, so that's cool. Actually, I mean, like I said, I hadn't thought of that. And one thing that, like a little usability thing that I would suggest here, is just to pre-fill the date with today's date. Right?
Okay.
So that way the user doesn't have to enter that if it is today, but they can change it if they want to. That's cool.
Let me stop sharing. Okay.
Nice. All right. Other pair. You're up.
Yeah, so I guess I have probably the most current version of the code. So Haley, if it's cool, I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah, you did most of the heavy lifting this week. I'm gonna try and be alert. I woke up with a cold this morning, so I'm kind of, yeah. But yeah, I saw your changes there too, so I'm following along.
So here we go. So here, so let's see. Some things that we changed. So first and foremost, the most important thing was getting the token file in. That was already set up for us. So that's like a lot of stuff going on in there. So we have that, and we pull it in. Let me get my. There we go. So we pull it into the app file, where we set it in local storage with this generate token handler function. And we also set it in state using hooks. So here, when you're on the home path, you're gonna see the button. When you click it, you're gonna see your token. Or if you enter the existing token, like apparently we weren't supposed to do, but we did it anyway, that will also show up there. And it will, when it shows up there, it'll populate it in as a prop being passed down to the item list and into the form, so that when you are adding a collection or searching a collection, that token prop is what's going to be populated there. We added a little bit of error handling in the form and a little confirmation when it sends. That's all. I think that's all that we did in that one. Item list. Oh yeah, item list was a big one because I just have, I feel like I'm a little bit more comfortable with hooks now that I've kind of gotten away from class-based components a little bit more. So I was having some trouble with component did mount, component did update with some of the errors in the data leakage. And I was like, having just read that article about use effect, I was like, I'm just going to get rid of these and make this a functional component and experiment with use effect. And it came together. So I was like, okay, that'll be fine.
Nice.
So, and it made that a lot smaller, but we're still using their original code down here. I think that's it. And then this is what it looks like. So, oh, whoops, it's not running. That's right. But I mean, it's up on, I guess, Netlify or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how to use, I don't know where the Netlify thing is. So I just go here.
Okay.
So this is just the pre-existing one. It auto-populates your list there. You can still add. So if you see your token there still, that's the list that you're adding to. So you can add whatever more. I added more carrots, bananas, whatever. Soon. Add, you get a little success alert. And then when you go back to the list, you should see more bananas. And it'll work the same if you generate a new one, you'll see nothing. You add items.
Look at that date picker and everything.
And they're there. So that's it.
Cool.
Looks great.
Yeah, I really like having the token there too, because that kind of implies that you could have, like, you could maybe name the lists, have several different lists that you are kind of working against and stuff as well. So yeah, you're all pushing this thing forward. It's cool. Yeah, any other comments or anything from mentors or the other pair or anything?
This looks fantastic. I've been really impressed to see, like, throughout all the different cohorts, how different the app is every time. So cool to see. Great work.
I was very impressed with how readable everyone's code is. I don't struggle at all when I go into the code review. I know exactly what you're doing with the code whenever you write it. And so I think that's really refreshing, is just that everyone has different experiences and backgrounds, but you all are writing really good code. So good job, keep that up.
Nice. Yeah, there's something else I was gonna say. I don't know what's going on. It's been a long weekend. I was at a conference the last 2 days, so not getting the normal rest that I would get. But yeah, it's anyway. Well, let's do the retro, and I have some ideas and stuff that I'll share there. But yeah, really nice work, everybody. All right, we ready to retro? All right. I will grab the link to the project board. So we're just going to use GitHub projects for this. So I created just a simple sort of 3-column thing there. Maybe I'll just share my screen for a second so you can see that. But so we'll just, each person, we'll just take a few minutes and just kind of asynchronously, like we'll just kind of go quiet and write, each person will write a card in each of the columns. And each card, you can put 2 or 3 sort of bullet points about things that you want to share. And then once everyone's written their cards, we will we'll randomize an order, and then we'll go through each column and let everybody kind of, verbally talk about their card. And kind of at the end, we'll pick maybe 1 or 2 things that we want to try to improve for the coming 2 weeks. So, so at this point, you go ahead and just start creating your cards, writing things down, and then when you're done, just indicate that you're done in the chat. And then we'll know we can switch back to talking about it. Is that clear? Makes sense?
Yep.
I wanted to add a point that with these columns, you can add cards about yourself, but also if you have feedback for the greater team or the mentors specifically, feel free to leave a card there about that so we can discuss it. Don't just don't hold back thinking that you would hurt our feelings or anything. Just be honest there. So.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, this is it's about working on a team, and it's about helping the whole team be more effective and stuff. So wherever that feedback needs to happen, like Michael's saying, please be honest and direct and considerate as you give that feedback.
All right, let's do it.
getting close. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dones in the chat. There are 8 of us. Okay, we're getting almost there. Oh, are we done? Is everybody done? Matthew, are you done? I think you're done-ish. I saw a shrug.
I wrote one for each. I know.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think we're okay. All right. Cool. All right. So I will share the board again. I promise the order was random. I'll show you I have this thing that I wrote at one like years and years ago that orders things. So just put the names in there. Cool. So I'll start off. We'll do appreciations first. Like everybody will go, and then we'll move on to the next column, and everybody will go through their cards on that. So I just want to say I appreciate all of your hard work over the last 2 weeks. It's been really fun to see. You're all putting in a ton of effort, and I really appreciate that. I love seeing that. And then just Radhika and Michael, I mean, the attention you've been giving the cohort and the great feedback on PRs and everything. Yeah, it's been so good. It's really I feel like we're off to a really good start. So thank you everybody for everything you're doing.
Okay, I appreciate you, all of the cohort members, so much for working together in the open and so collaboratively. Like all of the group thinking in the channel has been really like empowering to see and really exciting and inspirational. And I hope that kind of like transparency and stuff continues throughout the program because it's so powerful and it keeps us all so connected and it's amazing. So appreciate you. And same as Andrew, like appreciations for Michael and Radhika because like I think that it's so important to have that kind of like regular check-in from the mentors so that everybody feels supported and feels like they have an outlet to ask questions and stuff. So thank you for being so available and supportive to the cohort. Trophies. Next.
So I've been confused a lot these first 2 weeks, and I appreciate Stacy and Andrew for being so hands-on of being the mentors.
You're welcome.
Of course. Thank you.
I wanted to give appreciation to all 4 mentees for being really involved in completing the work. This is going way better than I could have imagined. And you make my job a lot easier just by being awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah, so my first week I paired Rachel and then Jayla. And they were just both really easy to communicate with and pair with. And like we traded, each day we kind of traded back and forth and yeah, it just all went really well. And I've noticed when I first start like programming or pairing in the first 5 minutes, it's just like my brain isn't there. And then all of a sudden it comes back. And so it's really comfortable and like I didn't feel like judged or anything whenever I'd mess up. So yeah, it just all went quite well. And it's taking away the nerves of doing this type of stuff because I've never paired virtually or anything. So I'm getting more comfortable with it as a result. So yeah, they've been great.
Nice. Rachel.
Yeah, I put like 3 little cards, but I just wanted to say that I appreciate all the mentors for being like so incredibly helpful, so available. I really didn't expect like to like have a question and have it like just answered with so much great information like so quickly. So that's so cool. And I've done a lot of pair programming through Epicodus, so I'm really used to it. And my experiences so far here have been just as good. So you guys are amazing, and I really appreciate the just like the constant communication with teammates in Slack too. That's super cool.
Cool. All right, Jayla.
Mine's kind of related to Rachel's. That I just wanted to say I'm super appreciative of everyone being very patient when explaining, like even in the like PR reviews, just explaining it in a way that we can grasp. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Haley?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the mentee feedback on PRs. I've never done much pair programming or any code reviews or anything, so seeing how other people do it is, I like the way we're doing it here. So, and then of course the learning hooks, never seen them, so what I've seen so far, excited to learn more about them. And this kind of goes into the what went well as well is people's flexible schedule, since the first week kind of stressed out, and then finding time to pair with Jayla since we're 3 hours apart I was a little worried about, but we got through.
Cool. Nice. I always love the appreciations column. Anyway, so what went well? This team is clearly skilled. You all have like really good just like good coding skills, but also like you're thinking ahead and kind of thinking about the experience of the user. And the app is already like looking good, and we're a card ahead of schedule. I mean, like everything's going really well from the project perspective. Everyone's being pretty noisy in Slack, and I love that. That's kind of a learned skill, I think, for a lot of people. It's if we're all working remotely, we're not sitting in an office with each other. That's where we have to kind of make make noise and kind of just like let each other know what's happening. So great start. More of that would be even better. So good job.
That's literally everything that I wrote as well. Great job communicating in Slack. I love to see it. Keep it coming.
Yep. Cool. All right, Radhika.
I've been super impressed with the skill level of everyone. I know half of y'all didn't know hooks, and then half of y'all didn't know Firebase. So just like picking that up so quickly and barely even struggling with it is so cool to see. Especially, I guess for me, it makes my job easier. That all I would have to do is send a link, and y'all just get it. And then I really liked seeing the communication in Slack, and making the schedules work and everything. It's been, from my end, everything has looked super seamless so far.
So to specifically focus on part of what Radhika just said, the thing that I'm impressed with the most is that y'all are learning new things on the fly as you develop. That's a really common thing in our industry, that you'll be given a ticket to solve a problem. I just did that last week where I had to put a live chat on a page, and I had never seen that code before. I'd never used the tool before, and you're just expected to do it. So the fact that all of you have already picked up something new, whether it's Firebase or hooks, anything like that, and excelled with it, that's really impressive.
Yeah, so I'm really glad we were able to kind of, for both weeks, we were able to get a jump start on Monday and then straight into Tuesday. And it just kept my anxiety down because I felt like we weren't falling behind and we're staying on top of everything. And then, yeah, just that PR stuff and the code review, the whole PowerPoint and the examples we were given was great, just for knowing how to create the PRs and new code reviews for this. And then I also did my very first one at my other job, and because this came like the day before I did that, I was very fresh on like the best way to do it. So that was extremely helpful for that. And I actually felt like I did it correctly.
Awesome.
So yeah, thank you.
Rachel.
So yeah, I mean, again, like the communication's like the biggest thing, really, and being able to be flexible with our schedules. So that's been really well. As long as we can get together, we can do it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Jayla?
My favorite part of these last 2 weeks have just been starting early and meeting frequently. Just because I didn't want to be in a position Friday night trying to bust out 5 hours of work. So I'm so glad everyone kind of made it a priority.
Mm-hmm. And Haley.
Since I wrote this one first, it's kind of my appreciation as well as the being mindful of other people's schedules and flexibility. Similar to Jayla, getting started early in the week, because I kind of ran into those fears as well of I didn't want to be like Saturday night or Friday night working on something late, but going good so far.
Cool. Nice. All right. And then things that can be improved. Yeah, the getting started early is super, super helpful, super important. Yeah, so I noticed on because I was, we have 2 cohorts going on, and and I'm not like a direct mentor, but then occasionally like I'm getting kind of tagged in to look at something and like finding the PR, but it's going straight into comments or something. There's not really, I saw at least on one of the PRs that it would be helpful to me to have sort of an outline of what the problem is you're trying to solve, and maybe even a link back to the story as kind of a summary or something at the top of the PR, because that would just help me kind of look at it and be like, oh, okay, I know which one they're working on, and then I could more quickly get oriented. So I was having to do a bit of switching back and forth to see like which pair is on which story and some of those kind of things when I was going to look at PRs. So just a little bit more context in the PR would be great. And then we did work ahead a little bit this week, so I don't know if that was because we like it was just kind of there, like, oh, it's obvious we should do this, or if like it was like, well, there wasn't much to the story or something. If you are finding that the stories are like you're able to get through sort of the core work of the story, rather than working ahead, I would maybe encourage people to. We could have a discussion about if this is the approach we want to take, but consider adding tests. That would be a kind of a stretch goal. Also, just kind of as we go, if we're looking at accessibility. I know we haven't really talked about accessibility very much yet, but we could throw a couple of links in the channel if people want to start looking at that as well. And those are kind of things that are sort of considered optional each week. But if you're like, I could learn a little bit more about testing. Like how would we test this thing that we just did? We can have a discussion about that in the channel as well. So those would be my suggestions.
Okay, this isn't necessarily what went well, but I read what Andrew wrote and was like, oh, this could be a good time to say it. So if you do have extra time, like Andrew was saying, I would suggest that in addition to the things Andrew said, take some time to like learn by teaching. So whatever you were working on that week is going to be really fresh for you. So it's the perfect time to like write a technical blog post. And it's not only good for you, like as you go into your job hunt to show like that you can learn and speak well about what you know and teach people, but it's also going to help your teammates as they go into work on the pieces of the puzzle that you built. So if you learn something new about how to do something in Firebase, write it up so that you can share it with your teammates so that when they go to tackle something involving that same thing, they'll have a little bit of guidance from somebody that they know and can ask questions to. Suggestions, great job.
Okay.
To add to that real quick, I think that the idea of writing about what you're learning and just blog posts like that, it goes hand in hand with, so it's common in our industry for people to ask for GitHub profiles when they're interviewing you. And that's, some people could say that that's a questionable practice, but if you have an array of blog posts that you wrote about stuff that you learned, that's a really big feather in your cap. I think that it would set you apart a lot in interviews. So definitely think about that as you go.
Yeah. Agree. Rika.
Firstly, oh, my phone is buzzing. I'm not doing so hot. So after I go over the what could be improved, I'm gonna hop off. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, sure, no problem.
Cool. So I wanted to specifically say, I think that the PRs have been like really, the improvement has been great, but of course I have high expectations and I want even better. I think the one thing I want to say is like, don't be afraid to look at specific parts of your code that you think are hard to explain and either add comments like in the code or add comments in the PR explaining that section. Because that is, being able to leave a comment per line is available to you as a PR maker and available to people in the reviews. And like, that's a really good way to kind of tell everyone else to focus on this part.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All right, I will see you all soon.
Okay, I hope you feel better.
Bye. Get well soon.
Take it easy. So for this one, I thought it would be interesting just to discuss. So for me, even though I know what the end product is supposed to look like, I think the milestones that the cards represent are kind of up in the air for me. And so what happens is when I'm reviewing code, sometimes I don't know if I should point something out, like improve styles or something like that, some functionality. The tickets are pretty brief, so it leaves a lot to like your brain to explore all the different options of like what you could do in the ticket. So I think just talking about what the whole entire scope of the project is, like in terms of the tickets, might be useful. But maybe I'm the only one who is thinking that. So just a thought.
Yeah, let's talk about that as a group when we're done getting through the cards. Matthew.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything to improve for the program so far, so I just kind of turned it inward. There's been a couple days where I've kind of just like hopped on the call where I probably could have taken like 20 minutes beforehand and maybe read a little bit doc on Fire. Is it Firebase or Firestore? I keep mixing them up, but like something like that, for example, just reading really quickly to kind of get up to speed. So kind of just forcing myself to be a bit more disciplined before I kind of hop on stuff would be helpful for me and probably the people I'm working with.
Cool. Rachel.
Yeah, I'd have to say that I actually have that same issue. I need to like dig in before I get on the call. That's a really good one. But yeah, so generally I feel like my planning, following directions, my communication in general could certainly be better. I think that's probably part of why our little project got away from us, is because I was like I never really totally got the instructions until I saw the other team's code. It became a little bit more clear, and I was still like, but don't I need to pull this from the database? I better put in an input. So that's kind of why that happened. Yeah, so still probably more communication on my part.
Makes sense. Jayla?
So mine was a personal one as well, but I just wanted to kind of echo the idea of, I know what the end product looks like, but I don't really know how we're getting there. And I think that it would benefit me kind of to read through some of the future cards just to get a better idea, because they're not super specific. So it's kind of up to your own interpretation, which is cool. But I want to make sure that I'm not, kind of completely going off rails for anything that's planned. But as personal improvement, I do want to develop my code review skills and kind of contribute more like meaningful comments, because the code is really easy to read. So that's where I hope to improve.
Nice. Haley.
Yeah, I kind of echo kind of what other people have been saying as well, especially Rachel, since we had quite a bit of time discussing what was supposed to happen and what we were shown. We were kind of confused for a while, and then I looked at the branch and it made some more sense. But turns out it's a future card. But yeah, again, personal for me as well, since a lot of this is new. I do a lot of I'll read it, stare at the code review, and be like, this will make sense in a little bit. Either I'll come back, or I haven't been leaving as many questions as I probably should, but we'll see in the future. Usually it comes to me eventually, but not to be scared to ask questions or feel like it's a dumb question.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like what we've seen, like with every cohort, it takes a couple weeks to kind of trust that it's okay to ask a question. You know, like you're not expected to know this stuff in advance, and again, it's not a class. You're not being tested on any of this stuff. It's just us working together to do something. So, yeah, the more you can ask questions, and either like in this case, if you're like, well, it seems like there should be an input, but there's no input mentioned in the acceptance criteria. You could scan the project board and see if there's something that looks like it might be covering that, or just drop in the Slack and say, hey, should we be adding something to create it, like just add a token in ourselves? And those just none of these questions are are bad questions or stupid questions or anything, because you don't know, you just got here, like you're just looking at the board for the first time. So feel free to just kind of ask as many questions, ask all the questions. So this kind of came up a couple times, which is kind of knowing, like maybe looking at the cards down the road. It's something that we mentioned in the kickoff, but it's hard to, there's a lot of information coming at you at that point. So now maybe you have enough context that you can kind of look through the remaining cards on the board and kind of see how it's structured. The idea is that there's sort of two tracks. There's a set of cards that have to do with the list view. So there's like filtering the list and ordering the list and some of those kinds of things. And then there's a set of cards that have to do with the items themselves. So adding an item, showing the details on an item, deleting an item, those kinds of things. So now that we have kind of the basic app structure in place after these couple of weeks, the idea is that sort of each week we'd be making progress on those two tracks. And that's the intention of the cards. Whether we capture it well in the cards that are the way they're written is another question. So would it be helpful to kind of do a sweep of the cards or something at this point? Or is that something people feel like they could kind of on their own look at the board and kind of get an idea of how it's going to go? Michael, did you have any other thoughts?
Well, so the one that was sticking out to me specifically was I know that we're focused on functionality right now, but I know that everyone wants an opportunity to make the app look nicer. And I wasn't sure if there's a card specifically for like polish. So that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there are a couple cards at the end of the project. So I mean, they're not probably the best cards in the world. It just says like make it look pretty. But there are some cards at the end where that's the focus. So that's why, like I was saying, like we're kind of ahead of schedule in the sense that the app is already looks nice. There's colors and there's things are kind of looking pretty ordered and stuff. So, yeah, we do have kind of time set aside.
Yeah, I'd like to say a little bit about styling too. That I mean, Michael, I'm sure you've experienced this endlessly in your career, but if you kind of go in with no idea of how you're going to style it, you're just going to spin your wheels, like trying to put a bunch of stuff together that you think looks good and then it doesn't, and then other people are adding things to it, and it just becomes this kind of like dumpster fire of like styles. So it's like we can wait till the end, and like you'll be applying styles and then they're breaking other things or they're looking wonky as you add new features. So if we can like focus on functionality now, like if you want to add little things, sure, but then do some styling down the line, I think we will spend less time troubleshooting problems caused by the styling that was put in place earlier on. And then also, as you're reading these cards too, when you read it, your goal should always be, what's the bare minimum I can put in place to like check off this acceptance criteria and start there. So like, if you're like, oh, I think that this probably needs this input or this other thing, it's like, if you can't read the card and say that this definitely needs that feature, then try and do it without it. Just try and do like the bare minimum to satisfy the acceptance criteria. And then if you get that done and you have extra time and want to do other things, absolutely. But it just like, it kind of helps focus your mind, which is hard to do when you have something so bare, like these cards that say almost nothing. just challenge yourself to do the least amount possible to satisfy.
Yeah, that is kind of how they were written too. Is that you know, if you kind of do exactly what it's asking for, over time we're going to build up the app to be all the things that it needs to be. But yeah, like I was saying, like, you know, there's plenty of other scope that you could add in terms of adding tests or you know, some of those kinds of things too, if that's of interest. So and really, you know, like, you know, we're asking for 5 hours a week, and if you know, you're putting in 10 hours a week because you're doing extra stuff, then, you know, you can go for a walk or something. I don't know. Do something else.
Yeah,
but,
to like
yeah.
all of my comments about like just wait on design, it's to protect your time, because I know how time consuming something like styling can become. Like when you have all these big ideas about how beautiful it could look and it's just so hard to get there. It's like, I'm protecting your time by telling you to just wait. Do it if you want, but you also have time that needs to be protected, and I love you and I want you to have a good life.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, some really good stuff here. We have about 9 minutes, and then we have another call with actually the last call for TCL3. We're wrapping them up. We're really sad. But should we maybe take a few minutes to kind of talk about the work for the coming week?
I think so.
All right.
That's it.
What pairs do we have?
Yeah, you with the good questions.
I don't have the project brief up, so if anybody knows. This reminds me, I need to put an automation in place for this. I'm going to do that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It should just post to the channel around this time every week and just say. Right?
Yeah. Automation.
I know it's me and Haley, so then.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So,
I'm assuming.
Yep.
Which issue do you want to do? Thanks for
My
speaking
process
up,
of
Matthew.
So I want to join an existing shopping list so I can share a shopping list with someone. That we should just verify that all the AC are covered. Like we did, I know we did some of that, but somebody can just maybe kind of go through that and make sure that that's all hit, and we'll be able to move through that one hopefully pretty quickly because it's basically done, I think. Then the other, you know, if we want to take on the next two, so stories 6 and 7, as a user, I want to be alerted when I'm entering an item that is the same as something already on my list, so I can avoid duplicates. And that's number 6. And then number 7, as a user, I want to see a welcoming prompt to add my first item if my list is empty, to help me get oriented to how the app works.
So one's going to be a little more logic heavy, and the other is going to be a little more like UI element focused. Who wants which? Speak up first to get the one you want.
I left a chat 5.
All right.
So I haven't done as
Then
much UI stuff with mine, so I'm like, I need this.
Well, so 5 is actually the one where you're at, where the one that we kind of did the work where you worked ahead. So you're welcome to validate that one that we cover all those AC. But maybe whoever does 5 would also do 7, because there's a little bit of work in 5 left.
Is 7 the UI one?
Yeah.
The welcome. Yeah, those are good
Oh,
ones.
okay, that was the one I was thinking. I think because it's 6, 7, 5 on my list, so it's
is it? Oh, okay.
Turned around.
Well, those are perfect ones to put together anyway. So, okay, Haley's team's 5 and 7. The other team is 6.
3 cards.
All right.
Right.
Yeah, 3 cards. Okay. All right. So, should we just talk about it as a group, or?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. So looking at well, let's look at 5, I guess, and see if we feel like it's done. So, joining a list consists of the following: user enters an existing token. So you show an error if the token doesn't exist. Allow them to try again or start a new list. I don't know if it currently does that.
Anybody know?
It doesn't show an error. It's not set up to look for a pre-existing token.
Okay. Okay, so that's something we'll still need to implement. If it's a OK token, then you save it to local storage and then take the user to their list. So on the onboarding screen, the user can tap to reveal a field, which is not, yeah, I think the field's just kind of showing at all times now. But that's probably fine. And then entering the token and hitting submit saves the token in local storage, giving them joint control of the list. So I feel like the AC are basically done, except that's the way this is written, there are kind of hidden AC in the story above it. So so probably the error handling is the big thing, right? So maybe just adding that. And then, right. Let's look at number 7 then. So that sounds like it should be pretty straightforward. So the list view, when there are no items to display. So the idea is you come into the app and the first thing you get is, create a list or add a token. And then you're taken to the list view itself. Once you have a valid token, you go into the list view. And if there's nothing in the list, it should say, welcome, like to get started, add your first item or something like that. And then that would take, then you hit a button and it takes the person to the add item screen.
I would suggest too, like popping over to the example app and just seeing what it looks like there could help you focus a little bit.
Any questions about the AC? I mean, is that straightforward, or is there anything confusing about that?
So far, I think okay, but I'll see you later.
Okay.
Might have questions.
We're here for you if you have questions.
And then, all right, cool. So let's look at number 6. So as a user, I want to be alerted when I'm entering an item that is the same as something already on my list, so I can avoid duplicate items. So this one has tripped people up in the past. So so it's kind of broken up into 3 acceptance criteria. The first one is you show an error message if the user tries to submit a new item that has the exact same name as the existing item. So you almost think of these as kind of layering on functionality, right? Like, if they put in the exact same thing as something that exists, just show them, that it's already there, right? The second one, show an error message if the user tries to submit a new item that has the same name when capitalization has been normalized. So either all uppercase or all lowercase or something, and then punctuation has been removed. So the idea is that maybe you leave out the apostrophe one time, or you have a comma in there or something like that. That shouldn't affect whether, like, the app should understand that those are still the same thing. If it's otherwise the same. Or if one time you capitalize something and the other time you don't, like, the app should be smart enough to know that those are the same item. So and just the third one is just to be really clear, like the user's original input is what should be saved to the database. So don't, because that's the user's going to expect to see what they put into the app, right? So in other words, don't save the normalized version of the string in the database. When you think about how, like, that kind of routine of normalizing the input and comparing and those kinds of things, can you kind of imagine an approach? Like, how would you think you might approach that problem?
Well, I wanted to know what you guys would recommend about, for the first one, trying to validate against the existing data. Is it easier to kind of pull your data when your component mounts and then read from there, or is it easier on every call to try to read the database on the other side?
That's a great question. And it's the first time that this question has come up, and all the other cohorts have ended up running into Firestore query limits because they were making a query on every keystroke. And so thank you for bringing it up. Let's try to avoid that this time, because it usually means like, oh no, everybody has to stop working and wait till the next day to kind of continue. Wow, Mike, that's an amazing spot you're sitting in. The Golden Gate Bridge behind you.
So to answer the question, Jayla, yes, if you can get a local list as opposed to hitting the database every time, so much better. Do that.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, when we do that initial, when we enter the token, the way it's set up now, the database items are just stored locally in an in-state in an array.
Okay.
So I mean, I feel like that's what we should be iterating through, is just the local extension, that state.
Did you see my comment in the I forget which one exactly, but there was one of the PRs this last week where someone did a use effect hook, and the second argument to that function was actually props.token. It was an array with props.token in it.
Oh, that was with ours.
Yeah. So
that was their dependency. That what was cool was when I put that in, the IDE just popped up and was like, "This is the dependency you need."
right. So what that
Thanks,
what you can
Dan.
do with that for this ticket is do something where you pass in the items there instead of the token when you have your use effect hook to pull in the list items from Firebase. What that'll do is make sure that every time the component re-renders, it'll look at that second argument, and if nothing has changed. So as you're typing in a new item, every time you type in a keystroke, you're not changing anything. You're just, someone's like typing in a text input, right? You're not changing the data in Firebase. So what that will do is prevent it from continuously refetching the items every single time. That is the major point of that second argument. And that's why I was really excited that y'all put that in there without any kind of coaching. That's a good thing to do. So I think if you do that again this week, you'll be fine.
Cool. All right. Well, you can see that TCL 3 is coming on the call for their last weekly meeting. So thanks everybody. Great work these first 2 weeks. And yeah, if anything else comes up about this story in particular, let's ask a lot of questions in Slack and everything. This is Mike. He's no longer at the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't know what happened. But and Nikema.
He moved fast.
And Lars, who's one of the mentors. So.
All right, great work last week, everyone.
Hey everyone,
Yep.
and happy last week, TCL 3.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll see you later.
Bye, TCL4.